Hi, everyone. It is so great to be here in St. Louis and so great to look out at so many hundreds of deplorable people. But you're redeemable, right? You're redeemable. It is a privilege to come, and I was worried that I wasn't going to be able to be here because I was supposed to be with Larry Kudlow and the president, but of course, because of the storm, it was kind of a blessing in disguise. I'm happy to be here. And it's how many of you, by the way, how many of you watch Fox News? How many of you watch CNN? How many of you watch MSNBC? Sir, you're in the wrong room. Hey, Sam, I didn't even see you there. It's good to... By the way, you want to talk about here... I didn't see you there, Sam. I'm so glad you're here. Truly. I mean, I was very privileged to be involved with Donald Trump pretty early. You know, I think we met, October, November of 2015. But Sam Clovis is a hero. He was one of the first people in the country to sponsor Donald Trump. And frankly, I don't think Larry Kudlow and I would have gotten involved with Donald Trump if it weren't for this guy. So let's give Sam an amazing round. You are a hero. Thank you for what you did. And so much of what I'm going to talk about this afternoon about the Trump plan, Sam, you came up with these ideas. So you are a hero to me, and I'm just so pleased to see you here. So I am now with fake news. I'm with CNN. I'm sorry. It's a tough thing, but I was thinking about this when you were talking, Rose. By the way, talking about beautiful women. Is Rose a beautiful woman or not? And she's smart, too, so it's so great. But two quick stories from CNN. And I was thinking of this when you were telling your story about Stormy, because I was on CNN the night that Stormy Daniels came out with her allegations about Trump. And CNN does this all the time. They want me to come on and talk about economics, but of course at the last minute they want to switch to some other story that I'm not really up to speed on because I'm an economist and I don't like to talk about things I don't know. Liberals love to do that, but I don't like to do that too much. So of course they say, like right before we're going on the air, Don Lemon is going to ask you a question about Stormy Daniels. And so there's four of us in the boxes, and I'm in a remote studio, so I'm just looking at a blank camera. And Don Lemon says to the first person, what do you think, Joe, of these new charges by Stormy Daniels about Donald Trump? And he says, well, Don, I think, she may just be doing this for self-publicity, but, we've got to take these charges very seriously and so on and so forth. And so then Don Lemon turns to me. And truly, I had not thought about this at all. So Don Lemon says, well, Steve, what do you think about these, charges about Donald Trump? And it just flashed in my head, so I said it. I said, well, Don, who would have ever thought that a stripper would want to call attention to herself? And now what is very funny is that not one person, not one of the other three liberal panelists even cracked a smile when I said that. Because liberals, we're more fun than we are, right? We have a sense of humor. Have you noticed that? Liberals have no sense of humor. And so, and then Don Lemon said, well, Steve, what do you mean by that? And I said, well, gee, Don, she's a stripper, and strippers like to call attention to themselves, right? And so on. But that was a very funny incident. Okay, a little bit about myself. As I just said, thanks no small part to Sam Clovis. I met Donald Trump in about January of 2016, so I was a little bit ahead of Ralph Reed. And by the way, was Ralph Reed fantastic? What a great American he is. And we got involved with Donald Trump, and you had known Donald Trump a lot longer than I had. I had never met Donald Trump. I knew 16 of the presidential candidates. Remember that huge field of people. I mean, I knew Marco Rubio, and I knew, by the way, what's with Marco Rubio lately, right? I mean, what is with Marco? He keeps criticizing Trump, but I knew Marco Rubio and John Kasich, and I knew, Ted Cruz and all of them. The only one I'd never met was Donald Trump. And I remember we met with him, and Larry Kudlow and I went into Trump Tower, and we spent an hour with Donald Trump, and I just came out of that room. And I have to confess, I had a negative opinion, Sam, when I went into that room. I didn't, the Donald Trump that I had sort of seen on TV and that had been portrayed in the media, I didn't like that guy. And I went into that room, and literally after he is one of the most charming people that I've ever met in my life. He's gracious. He is somebody who pays attention to what you're saying. He's fun to have a dialogue with. I mean, he's larger than life. And I remember Larry and I walked out of that room after an hour with him, and we just said, this guy could win. And it was really true. I mean, there's something that is so amazing about Trump. And so we did get involved with Trump, and it was a lot of fun. We had so much fun on the campaign trail. I would not have given up. And you probably feel the same way, Sam. I wouldn't have given that up for anything else. And I've had so much fun in my life. I've worked at the Wall Street Journal editorial page and started the Club for Growth, done so many fun things. But the campaign was, wow, was that amazing. Just meeting people all over this great, great country of ours. And the support, the rallies, was one of the things that really got. How many of you attended a Trump rally? I mean, those were amazing cultural events. I never met any. And it was awesome because it was the people who attended those rallies were real blue-collar, working-class Americans, black, white, Hispanic, men, women, everybody. I mean, this idea that Trump is a racist, this is the thing of all the charges that are made against Donald Trump. It is the one that drives me the craziest. Because I met so many blacks and Hispanics at these, and they want the American economy to work too, right? They are socially conservative as we are, and so it was so great. And I remember, sometimes during the campaign, I felt like we weren't going to win. I lost faith a little bit there sometimes, and I love to tell the story of one time they sent me to Ohio, and I was doing an event for Trump because at the beginning we were doing stuff with him, but at the end Sam and I were doing events around the country for him. And I fly into Dayton, and we're going through these little towns in Ohio, and I don't know if there are any Ohioans in the room, but you go through these beautiful little fun little almost Mayberry RFD types of towns, and I'm looking out the window at these charming little, and some of these towns were so small they didn't have a stop light. A lot of them didn't even have a McDonald's, and I'm looking out the window, and Sam, all I see, Trump, 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 Trump. It was amazing, and it wasn't the campaign signs either, as you know. People would take big pieces of plywood and write their own signs, and people would, on the side of barns, people would TRUMP. And I remember I called Corey Lewandowski, who's a good friend of mine. He's a hero, by the way. Corey's awesome. And I said, Corey, we're in Ohio, and we knew we had to win Ohio, right? There's no way to win an election without Ohio. And I said, Corey, this is awesome. We're looking out the window. Here I'm in these small towns in Ohio. All I see is Trump, Trump, Trump. And I said, and I haven't seen one Hillary sign. Literally, I had not seen one Hillary sign. All I saw was Trump. We go around the corner, the words are out of my mouth, and sure enough, there's one of those big blue Hillary signs. So I said to my driver, I go, oh gosh, never mind, Joey, there's a Hillary sign. And so we go get a little closer, and Joey says, hey Steve, take a closer look at that sign. It said Hillary for prison. And I just knew we were going to win after I saw that sign. So that was a wonderful thing. Okay, so there will be an exam at the end of this session. So, but I want to give you a little walkthrough about some of the stuff that Larry Kudlow and I and Sam did to help Trump. Because look, it's very simple. This stuff that Rose was talking about, it didn't happen by accident. It didn't happen by accident. I was on the second CNN story I was going to tell you was that on Tuesday morning, I was on CNN with Robert Reich. You all know Robert Reich, and he's just hopeless. He just doesn't have his tray table in the upright lock position on any of this stuff, and so he's going on and on about this stuff, and then the host, this Poppy Harlow, says, Steve, do you think that there is an Obama effect here from this strong? Because by the way, it's very interesting. Starting on Monday, for the first time in a year and a half, even CNN is acknowledging that we are in a boom. Even it's undeniable, right? So even they are acknowledging the boom, but now they have to explain why it is the same people who said that Donald Trump was going to cause a second Great Depression if he was elected has created the strongest economy, as Rose said, in 40 years, and they don't have a very good explanation for that. So their fallback position is what Barack Obama said on Friday, which is that this is my economy, it's not Trump's. And by the way, Obama was the first one who said that Trump is going to crash the economy. So Poppy says to me, Steve, do you think there is an Obama effect here? And I said, absolutely, Poppy. There is an Obama effect here. It's the effect that Barack Obama is no longer president of the United States. That's why we have a boom. So let's walk through this. Let's go through what's happening, because this is fun stuff. I think you'll really enjoy this. By the way, I'm happy. I know a lot of you are activists, and so I'll make this available to anybody who wants it. It's a great way to argue with your liberal friends, but these are the facts. So let's start with why people were so angry. I'm sure, Sam, you confronted this. People would say, gee, why are Americans so angry? Everything's going so well under Barack Obama. Well, look, yeah, if you lived in Washington, D.C., right? If you lived in Silicon Valley, if you lived in Hollywood, or places like that, everything was wonderful. But you know what? For people in Ohio, we went to these places, right, Sam? You went to these places in Ohio, in Pennsylvania, Michigan, West Virginia, Kentucky, whether it's Erie, Pennsylvania, or Rockford, Illinois, or these places that were just left behind. East St. Louis, it was horrible. Some of those places we went to were heartbreaking, right? To see people in unemployment lines on drugs because the economy and these people felt left behind, right? They felt that like nobody cared about them. And so why were people so angry? Why did Donald Trump win this election? Why was he able to carry the day on the economy? And it's because Obamonomics was a failure. And this is something we have to get this message out. No, Obama did not rescue the economy. We did have a recovery, but as this is showing you, what I'm doing here is showing you what happens, the course of recoveries. By the way, remember, we showed this chart to Donald J. Trump, and he was fascinated by this. So you can see under Trump and Obama, to give him his credit, we did have a recovery, no question, and it's been a long recovery. It began in June of 2009, but as Rose said, it was a really shallow recovery. We only grew about 1.9% per year, which is kind of pathetic, and over that period, so that the cumulative effect was an economy that was 15% larger. Now, then what we did is say, well, what about the average recovery? Because we've had 8 recessions since the end of World War II. When you have a recession, you always come out of the recession. And how did the economy do coming out of the recession? Well, you can see here that the average recovery was 29%, or twice as strong as what Obama gave us. And then I just love comparing Obama's record with Reagan's record. I was privileged to have worked for the Gipper in his last year in office. And look, I think Reagan was just amazing. I mean, he was one of the great presidents. By the way, Reagan and Obama both came into office during periods of great economic crisis. I mean, how many of you in this room are old enough to remember? Do you all remember like double-digit inflation and 15%? Remember 20% mortgage interest rates in 1979? When I say my prayers at night, I say, thank God that Jimmy Carter was not reelected president in 1980. And now I say, thank God Hillary Clinton was not elected president in 2016. But Reagan inherited a horrible economy, so did Trump. And look at the difference. And Reagan's philosophy was very simple, right? It was cut taxes, cut regulations, get inflation under control by controlling our money supply. In one sentence, do you remember that very famous debate he had with Jimmy Carter in 1980, 1 week before that election? Remember, he said this. And this is the essence of Reaganomics. He said, government is not the solution, government is the problem. Remember that? And he was exactly right. And look at that. Look at the difference. 36% versus 14%. Now, what does that mean in terms of how it impacts all of us? It means the average American, if we had had a recovery under Obama like we had under Reagan, the average American family would have $4,000 more income today. $4,000 more. It's $3 trillion difference. That's the aggregate output every year of Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania combined. By the way, over the same time period, and I'm going to be nonpartisan here, the Bush years weren't very good either, frankly. The Bush years weren't very good either, especially the last 2 Bush years. And by the way, can we make a little pact in this room as conservatives? Because we're conservatives first, right, and Republicans second. Never again, never again should we ever bail out a company, a bank, or an industry. Never. We're not into bailouts, right? We don't believe in bailouts. And I think shame on the Republicans for doing it. Okay, so that's why people were mad. This is another chart we showed to Donald Trump. We said, look, Donald, we have, of course, everyone, how many of you are concerned about the $20 trillion national debt? Of course, everyone is. This is a big problem that we face, and not least of all, Donald Trump. But we said to him, look, this is our debt. And by the way, can you believe the chutzpah of Barack Obama to bring up the debt? He said, what's with all those Republicans? They're borrowing so much money, which is true. The Republicans are borrowing too much money. But under Barack Obama, in 8 years, the national debt was increased by $10 trillion. By $10 trillion. I mean, it's not a laughing matter, but look at that. Look at the huge increase in the debt. And you can see the projection of where the debt is headed if we don't fix things. But what we did was we told Trump, look, this is based on the idea that the economy is going to continue to grow at this pathetic pace, right? We can't do that. 1.9%? No, we're America. We're not going to grow at 1.9%. We're going to grow at 3 or 4. And I think you were in the room, Sam. Remember what Trump would say? we'd say, Donald, we think we can get you to 3 to 4% growth. He'd go, I want 5%. You know, I said, I don't know if we can get to 5, but we're going to try. And he's damn near close to 5% now, isn't he? And the economy's growing at 4.5%. We're knocking on the door. But anyway, if you get the growth rate up to 3 to 4%, look at what happens to the debt. It goes down. It doesn't go up. So growth, growth, growth. This is the essence of what Obamonomics is about. Get America back to work. Get the jobs created. Get the money from overseas back to the United States. When you get people working, we get businesses making profits, guess what? They pay more taxes, and that's the best way to bring the debt down, and so that's why growth is so important. I'll skip this one. All right. This has to do with this idea that somehow there's an Obama. Obama is responsible for the crisis. I wrote this piece, by the way, this week, and I said, yeah, saying Obama is responsible for the Trump boom is like saying the Kingston Trio is what created the Beatles, right? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. But look at these numbers. So look at the top one. That's small business optimism. You see where that line goes straight up? You know when that poll was taken? Like 1 or 2 days after the election, right, Sam? So look at that Trump effect. I mean, it just went through the roof. Look at consumer confidence, the same thing. The red is the day that Donald Trump was elected president. It went through the roof. Look at the stock market. And then my favorite one is this one. I have to update this because this doesn't go through the numbers that came out last week. The number of Americans, the percentage of Americans who said that the economy was good or great throughout the entire 8-year Obama presidency was 3 out of 10. 30% of Americans rated the economy as good or great under Obama, under his vaunted recovery. Today, that's 7 out of 10. So that's a pretty spectacular improvement, right? To go from 3 to 10 to 7 out of 10. And by the way, the only reason it's not higher than that, there's just a lot of people who hate Trump. They love the economy, but they don't hate. But that's why Trump is going to get reelected. By the way, if these good numbers persist, and I believe they will for the next couple of years, Donald Trump is going to win the election with 40 states. That is my prediction because the economy is so strong. Okay, let's look at why it's happening. The boom didn't happen by accident. People like Sam and I believe that ideas have consequences, right? As we used to say to Donald Trump, if you twist the dial in the pro-growth direction, you get growth. If you twist the dial in the anti-growth direction, you don't get growth. One of the most important things that he did, and Sam was so instrumental in this, was deregulating the economy. Deregulating the economy. Look at this. The growth of regulations, and this is just pages in the Federal Register, one way to measure this stuff, it went up every year under Obama. Look at the Trump effect. In 1 year, he reduced regulations by 35%. And I've got to say, one of the things that really hit me was, you must have traveled with Trump to some of these coal towns across, it was sad. We would go to places like Charleston, West Virginia. We'd go to these towns in southern Virginia and so on. And these are towns that once were vibrant second and third generation coal miners. We'd have 30,000 people working in vibrant towns with truckers and coal miners and so on. And we go to these towns, and after 7 years of Obama in office, because remember, Obama intentionally tried to destroy the coal industry. And remember what Hillary said? If I am elected president, I will put every coal miner in America out of a job. Remember that? She said that. Then she wonders why she lost Ohio, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia, because they don't like that too much. But the point I'm making is we saw firsthand the effect of these regulations. And you could see the human element of regulations that were destroying people's lives. And thank God, Donald Trump. By the way, when you mentioned, Rose, the increase in manufacturing and construction jobs, you were absolutely right. The other one that's way up is mining jobs, because Donald Trump is bringing back the coal industry in America, and God bless him for doing that. So we're deregulating. Now, this is my very favorite cover of any Time magazine in the last 100 years. Look at this. The Wrecking Crew, how horrible. Now, these liberals are so stupid, they think this is actually a criticism of Trump. That, oh my God, Wrecking Crew, Trump is trying to dismantle the government in Washington. That's why we elected him, right? Are you people stupid? Of course he's trying to dismantle. How stupid are these people? And, he's just not doing it fast enough for my taste. But yeah, I want more of I want 20 of those wrecking balls. I want every last drop of that swamp drain. But it just shows the disconnect. I mean, liberals just don't get what's going on in this country. Okay, now trade. I'm a free trade guy. I'm a kind of Milton Friedman free trade guy. I was always uneasy with what Donald Trump wanted to do on trade. In fact, the first meeting that we had with Donald Trump, when Trump asked us to join you, Sam, and be an economist for him, Larry and I kind of turned to him and said, well, we were kind of flattered, but we were surprised when he asked us to work for him. We said, well, Donald, we can't work for you because we're for trade and you're a protectionist. And Sam was one of the few times I ever saw him get mad. He slammed his fist on the table and said, I am not a protectionist, he said. I do not believe in, he said, I understand the importance of international trade. And he said, I'm a businessman. I understand the importance of global commerce and all these things. He said, I just want to make sure that these trade deals are free, but fair. I want a level playing field. I want a level playing field. I want reciprocity. I want to make sure these other countries are playing by the rules. And here's what's interesting. Sometimes that 70-year-old businessman teaches me things, that I didn't know. I started looking at the evidence. You know what? He was right. He was right. Look at this. We have low tariffs. Look at the other countries. I thought we had free trade deals with all these countries, Sam. I thought it was reciprocal. Trump was right when he said the rest of the world is laughing behind our back. They are imposing higher tariffs on us. This is one of the things we hope for. Larry Kudlow and I are trying to get Trump to go to zero tariffs. If the other countries will go to zero tariffs, because you know what? You put a level playing field. I think Sam and Donald Trump and Larry Kudlow and I all agree on this. America can outcompete anybody, right? We can outcompete anybody if we have a level playing field. And this is the point. Look at China and South Korea and Japan. They're way, way higher than us. I'm going to say this. I think Trump is on the march on trade. He got a great deal with Mexico. I think if you notice, as soon as he got that deal done with Mexico, what did Canada do? They started making some concessions, right? This is a smart deal maker, and this guy is so smart. And we're going to get that deal done with Canada. They're going to end their 200% tariff on our dairy products and things like that, stop stealing our technologies. We're going to get a deal with the EU. By the way, this is a great thing. I'm not in favor of auto tariffs. I think they're stupid. And I was really worried when Trump came out with the 25% auto tariff. But you know what happened? As soon as he announced that 25% auto tariff, guess what? The EU came hat in hand to Washington and said, let's make a deal. And you know what? What country in Europe can't live with the 25% auto tariff? Germany, right? That's all Germany does is sell us cars, right? And so Trump got a deal. I mean, this guy is a master negotiator. I am so impressed with him. You got to understand the deal. So, and finally, on trade, this is where Trump has really persuaded me, Sam. China, and Trump is the first politician of either party in a long time to recognize this. China is not a friend. They are not an ally. They're an adversary, and they are an enemy, right? And Trump recognized that, and we are going to make sure that our interests are observed. And I'm going to make a prediction to you all in this room. By the end of this year, I'll bet anybody $50 in this room, by the end of this year, China is going to come hat in hand to Trump, and they're going to make major, major concessions to reduce that trade deficit, to stop stealing $300 billion from us, and to level the playing field so that we play on a level playing field. It's going to be the biggest thing that ever happened for our economy, and once that happened, you think the stock market's strong now. Once he gets that deal, Sam, you're going to see the biggest boom. Then we will get 5% growth. So Trump, my bottom line is this. Trump is winning on trade, right? Trump is winning on trade. Okay. I've never bet against this guy. The boom, the oil boom. I love this story. Trump got it immediately. Did you see the story? You mentioned all these great stories, Rose. You left out of one of my favorite ones. Did you see 2 weeks ago, front page of the Wall Street Journal, United States of America is producing more oil and gas than any other country in the world. How awesome is that? We are now exporting oil. We're exporting it. We're not importing it. We're very close to having a situation. I think I've got this in my chart. Look at this. Look what's happening under Trump. Look at that big increase. As we increase our oil and gas production, we're importing less of it. This is another great story. Sam, you were in the room for a lot of these things. Larry and I said to Trump, we believe if you do a pro-America energy policy and drill, and use America's vast energy resources, we said, Donald, we believe in 4 years you can make America energy independent. America independent for the first time in 50 years. You know what he said? Hell no. He said, I don't want energy independence. I want energy dominance. Dominance. And we are moving down that road. And by the way, is there any better way to defund the terrorists around the world than stop buying their oil. So this is a great thing. The left wants to stop this, by the way. They hate fossil fuels. They hate fossil fuels. This has led to a lower price of energy. Anybody who thinks that green energy is our future is living on a different planet. Anybody want to take after spending $150 billion subsidizing wind and solar power, anybody want to take a guess last year what percentage of our electricity production came from solar power? 1%. 1%. We got 4% from wind. What are these liberals talking about? California wants to go to 100% wind and solar power. I mean, these California crazies, they're going to go from 5% to 100%? They're not going to use our natural gas. They're not going to use our nuclear power. They're not going to use our coal. By the way, we have more coal and more natural gas than any other country in the world, and the liberals don't want us to use it. It's the stupidest thing that I have ever heard. And you are right, Rose, that we are now the country in the world that has reduced our carbon emissions more than any other country in the world because we're producing more shale gas. And natural gas is a wonder fuel, ladies and gentlemen. It is abundant, it's cheap, it's made in America, it's reliable, and it's clean burning. It's everything you want in a fuel. The left hates it. By the way, people say, well, we need a level playing, we shouldn't. Look at the wind and solar subsidies compared to these others. It's so absurd. Let's just get rid of all the subsidies for energy and have a free market and energy policy. Okay, the next one. Look at this. These are just things that most liberals don't know about. Look at what's happened to our air quality. So, we can't use coal, we can't use natural gas, we can't use oil. It's going to destroy the environment. What are they talking about? This is the numbers for our air quality over the last 50 years. Most kids, by the way, most high school kids and even college kids have no idea that this is happening. Look at this. We've reduced lead by 90%. Did you know that, Sam? Lead emissions have fallen 90% in the last 40, 50 years. Carbon monoxide, by the way, a little lesson here. Carbon monoxide is a pollution, right? Carbon dioxide is not a pollution. Carbon dioxide, you can't live without carbon dioxide, right? They want to get rid of carbon dioxide. But look at this, sulfur, all these things down 50, 60, 70, 80%. So my point is, our American economy is booming like never before, and we're cleaning up the environment at the same time. So we can have a safe environment and a booming economy at the same time. That's good news. How many of you seen this before? Raise your hand. I bet a lot of you have. If you haven't, this is economics in one lesson. Really. Sam, I scratch my head. You teach economics, don't you? And I try to think, how can I explain to these kids, what's with the millennials? I just hate the millennials. I just can't stand them. They don't understand anything. We spend all this money trying to educate these kids. I got 2 of them. They're so stupid. And, they say, oh, socialism is wonderful. And they're learning this crap in school. And, socialism is wonderful and capitalism doesn't work. And so I try to think of one picture. How can I explain to them that the superiority of capitalism? And this is it. If you haven't seen this before, what you're looking at, this is from about 15 years old. So it isn't too recent, but it hasn't changed. This is Korea, a satellite photo at night. And the white spots that you're seeing, those are the areas where you have light and where you have electricity and where you have economic activity. The black areas are where there's no economic activity, no light, and nothing. By the way, there is that one little dot there in North Korea. You see that little dot of light? That's Kim Il-sung's castle. The rest of the place is in the dark. Now, here's what's so fascinating. By the way, the huge white splotch there, that's Seoul. Seoul is an amazing city. It's like 3 times as big as Chicago, bustling with economic activity, and they're so entrepreneurial, the Koreans and so on. It's an amazing story. And then that line, I went to the DMZ. How many of you have been to Korea? Any of you? You go to the DMZ, it's just a line in the sand. That's all it is, Sam. It's just a line, And look at this. So this is such a great experiment because in economics we try to control for all the variables, right? But you can almost never do that. But in this case we can control it for every variable, right? Because North Korea and South Korea are the same in every single way. Every single way. They have the same DNA. They have the same culture. They have the same language. They have the same natural resources. They have the same, everything is the same about them, right? Their resources are the same. Everything is the same. There's only one difference. 50 years ago, one of them went to, communism, socialism, Bernie Sandersism, whatever you want to call it, and the other country went with free market capitalism, and look at the result. I rest my case, right? And then you've got 30 Democrats today that are running as outright socialists. I know. Give me a couple more minutes. Could I get 2 more minutes? 2 more, 2, 3 more? Okay. All right. So, all right. Red states, blue states. Our ideas work on the state level too. Look at what's happening. These are migration trends where people are moving to and from. Where people are moving to. Any Texans or Floridians in the room? A few of you. God bless you. You live in great, great states. What's the income tax in Texas and Florida? 0. Then look at California and New York. Highest income tax is 13% in California and New York. 0 versus 13%. Now look at this. These are migration patterns. These are people moving from one state to another over the last decade. 1.5 million people have moved to the great state of Texas. Almost 1 million people have moved in Florida. Look at California and New York. Over 1 million people have moved out of both of those states in the last. How do you? By the way, you can understand why people might leave New York, right? But how do you screw up California, right? I mean, how do you screw a place up? I mean, it's beautiful weather, beautiful mountains, beautiful beaches, beautiful women. I mean, what's not to like about California? And for the first time in American history, 1 million people have left California. That's Jerry Brown. That's liberalism for you. So I thought I'd show you. Look, these are the states that are working: Utah, Idaho, Indiana, North Dakota, Arizona. Look at the states at the bottom. Look at those states at the bottom, folks. New Jersey, New York, California, my home state of Illinois. It's just heartbreaking. They can't get out of this cycle of bad economics. Okay, the last thing I'll say, and I have used up, so let me just make this last point and then I'll stop. The tax cut. This was the gem. You know, Sam figures prominently in our book because you were the first one who drew up the tax plan. So, by the way, thank God for Sam again. I mean, he drew up the original version of the tax plan, which was so awesome. Thank you, Sam. And we just took what you put on the, those bullet points. We fleshed it out a little bit. So, but one of the things we said is, look, when you cut tax rates, the blue line is the tax rates. By the way, all these charts are things. Trump loves to look at pictures. He doesn't like to read a lot. He loves to look at pictures. So we discovered the way to get to persuade Trump is to show him pictures. So all this stuff I was showing to Trump. And I said, look at this. Sir, when we cut the rates, look what happened to the revenues. They went up. They went up. Reagan took the highest tax rate from 70 to 28%, and tax revenues went up. Every time you confront a liberal who says these are tax cuts for the rich, show them this, right? Lower tax rates, higher revenues. Okay, the next one. I'm going to skip that. This is the heart of the plan. This is the soul. This is the gemstone, right, of the tax plan. Our business tax rates were too high. We were at 40%. That's the black line at the top. Look at all the other countries cutting the rates. Every year, that's Ireland, that's Germany, that's France, that's Spain, that's China, that's India, that's Mexico. All of the competitor countries, look at what they've been doing for the last 25 years, cutting their tax rates. Now, why do you think they did that? Do you think they did that because they love their businesses? No! They were doing it for exactly the reason that Donald Trump talked about. They were doing it because they wanted to steal jobs and factories from the US of A. And we showed Trump this, and we said, sir, we're at 40% and the rest of the world's at 20%. That doesn't work anymore. It's like putting a 20% Head Start program for every country we compete with. It's like a 20% tariff on American, like we're imposing a tariff on our own goods and services. How stupid is that? So we said, we're at 40, we're at 20. We said, Sam and I and Larry, we think you should cut the rate to 20%. And you know what Trump said? I think you told him this, Sam. You said, not, he said, no, I don't want to do that. We were kind of shocked. One of the few times he said no. He said, I don't want 20%. I want 15. 15. Now, why is this important? This is a great lesson of how smart Donald Trump is. So we said, by the way, that's the first time I think ever that anybody has gotten to the right of Larry Kudlow and I on cutting tax rates. I don't think that's ever happened before. So we said, Donald, if you want a 15% tax rate, we'll fight for a 15% tax rate. So this is so interesting. From that day on till the day, December 20th, it was always the same. By the way, this economic agenda is for people like this, right? It's for the future generations who are going to benefit for what Donald Trump has done. So we said, he said 15%. Look at every speech, every declaration, every meeting, every time he spoke about the business tax rate, 15%. 15. He never wavered, not once. Now, why was that important? I was in the room, Sam, the day, December 20, Mitch McConnell comes into the White House. Says, he's very apologetic. He says to the President Trump, sir, I'm so sorry. We did everything we could. I just met with our Republican caucus. We had to get 50 Republican votes because not one Democrat in the House and Senate voted for the biggest tax cut for families and businesses in 30 years. He said, I failed you, Mr. President. I'm so sorry. He said, I cannot get you a 15% corporate tax rate. He said, would you take 20%, Mr. President? He said, sold, I'll take it. I signed, because I'm convinced Donald Trump wanted 20% all along. But you know what? This master negotiator, I am convinced to this day, if Donald Trump had started, Sam, with 20%, we would have ended up with 25. There's no doubt in my mind. But he knew if he started with 15 and stuck with that number, that master negotiator who knows the art of the deal, right? He started at 15. We ended up with 20. We now have one of the lowest corporate tax rates in the world. We're sucking capital, businesses from all over the world. Apple is bringing $300 billion back to the United States, one company. So that's working fabulously. What can I say? It is an enormous, I'm going to end with this story and I'm going to get off the stage. It's the most important, it's the thing that really kind of gratifies me more than just about anything else. So about 3 weeks ago, I'm in Dallas. And I'm just walking down the street, and this Hispanic woman comes up. She's approaching me from the other direction. And I kind of look up at her, she looks up at me, and she says, and when we pass, she kind of grabs me by the other arm, and she says, are you the fellow that I see talking about economics on TV, or something like that? And when people say that, no, that was somebody else. I'm sure that was somebody else. But because I don't want to get in an argument with people. It's just not, I don't have the energy for that. So, but I don't know. I just said, well, I said, do you watch CNN? She said, yeah. She said, oh, that's probably me. She said, I thought that was you. Your name is Steve Moore, right? And I said, yeah. She said, and she said, and by the way, she looked like she was, she's about 40 years old. She looked like she probably, I would just bet she probably makes $30,000 or $40,000 a year. She's not a rich lady by any means. And she said, I'll never forget this. She said, because it kind of actually chokes me up a little bit. She said, I just want to shake your hand. I said, wow. So I said, sure. She said, can I take a picture of it with you? I said, yeah, sure. That's kind of flattering. And she said, I just got a $1,500 bonus from my employer. $1,500. She said, for the first time in 6 years, I'm going to be able to take a vacation this summer. And you know what? That's what this is all about. The liberals kept saying this is about helping rich people. It was never about that, was it, Sam? I mean, it was never about helping the rich. It was always about helping middle-class Americans, working-class Americans, black Americans. By the way, it just sickens me when liberals talk about Trump not being some kind of racist. What president in modern times has done more for black Americans? We have the lowest black and Hispanic unemployment rate ever. He wants to give 6 million vouchers to African Americans so they can go to good schools. And it's the African American leadership that won't allow that to happen. It just makes me so angry. But my point is, we have done so much as a movement to help the least among us. The least among us. It was never about helping rich people. It was about giving every single American an opportunity. Wages are higher now. The Washington Post said it best on Wednesday. Washington Post, hardly a friend of ours, right, Sam? Front page. The best job market for blue-collar workers since the Beatles were still playing. Thank you very much, folks. Keep fighting. We got to win.